this refresher course that is being talked about out there, what is it, Mwalimu?
Well, the refresher course is on the skills and the new content that is in the competence-based curriculum. Because the competence-based curriculum, compared with the 844, there are certain content that was added, which was not in the 844. And you know, the teachers that we have currently who are practicing, they underwent the 844 system of education right from primary to colleges.
Right.
So the refresher course is meant to equip them with the new skills, with the new knowledge, with the new values that are entailed in the new curriculum of CBC, so that they can also pass the same to the learners.
The biggest question,
Yes.
what is so different with these skills that you're talking about, the 8441 and DCBC?
Well, you know, Shadrach, any education system, it undergoes changes. And these changes are always necessitated by its changes in the community or in the society at large. One of the things in the CBC, which is new, was not in the 844, is about digital literacy. Initially, there was nothing like inculcation or using computer devices or using technology in teaching. So these are things which are very new. So that's why the teachers need also to be aligned to that. Another thing, there are other values like citizenship, which were not so much dealt with in the 844 system.
Right.
So these things are supposed to be imparted to the teachers so that they can also teach the learners. Yeah, so the refresher course is simply about the new ideas, the new skills, and the new knowledge that has been added into the curriculum. And you know, with the advent of the new ideas and skills and attitudes in the new curriculum, which is the competency-based curriculum, also requires the teachers to be given a methodology that they will be able also to teach. Because the 844 system was mainly a teacher-centered approach curriculum. This one is child-centered or the learner-centered. So it focuses so much on the inquiry-based learning, which was not so much emphasized in the 844 system.
Right, very true. We'll be looking at some of those distinctions. But teachers have not received this refresher course so positive, let me use that word.
Yeah.
They've not like embraced it to the extent at which it was believed that it was supposed to be embraced. I don't know why it has spurred a lot of an uproar, particularly in the line of teachers. Why do you think it's so?
First and foremost, you know, I think not only teachers, but human beings, more often than not, they have a propensity of rejecting or not ready to accommodate a change. But the refresher course is very important to the teachers. The only shortfall that this refresher course implementation has is, one, the cost. Who is taking the burden of cost? Because the Teacher Service Commission said the teachers will bear the cost of paying for the training. Number two, the training venues, how to access the training. It also became a challenge because like there are few universities or learning institutions that are offering it. Riara University, Mount Kenya University, the Kenya Education Management Institute, and the Kenyatta University.
Right.
So the question was, what if someone is unable to access these learning institutions and still is required, in fact not just required, is mandatory to undergo the training. So this became the biggest problem. How do we, if you cannot go to Kenyatta University, and then there was this issue of you can access the content online.
Online, right.
You can access it online, but as you know, not all parts of the country have network connectivity. Some places there are challenges. So these are the teething problems that have the refresher course. But I don't think that teachers, professionals, they can refuse to be retrained.
Right,
Yes.
very true. Now, let's begin at looking at each of these tipping points that you've mentioned here.
Yes.
First and foremost, the cost of which. Who should bear the cost? Let's begin from there.
Who should bear the cost is a relative question, because one, if a teacher intends on his own volition to undergo a training for himself or herself, then that teacher ought to foot for the bills or the cost by himself or herself. But now when it is the government that has found it necessary for the teachers to be trained, then typically it is the government that's supposed to bear the cost. So in this case, because the change of the curriculum was initiated by the government, so it is the government that is supposed to bear the cost of training the teachers. Typically, that's how it's supposed to be in matters of teacher career progression and refresher course. Yes.
So you want to agree with those who are saying we are not going to bear the cost? The teachers who are saying...
I totally agree with them. I am a teacher, and I want to urge the government, they should bear the cost of training, because it's not the teacher's choice. They did not plan for the refresher courses. It is the government that saw it fit. It decided saw it fit, which is okay, that the curriculum, it is long overdue. It has to be overhauled. So now the teachers are required to be aligned to the new curriculum, and therefore it is the government that should bear the cost. In as much as the Teacher Service Commission says the cost is negligible, but it's not that negligible, because 6,000 in a year, it gets into someone's expense, which had not planned for it. And you know, if you look at what a teacher is being paid in Kenya, there is no provision in that in the event there will be refresher courses, then out of your salary, you can cater for the bills or the cost of that particular course. So the government should cater for the cost, because the teachers are ready to be retrained.
Why do you feel the government has maintained and it's been adamant to try and listen to whatever the teachers are saying here in relation to this refresher course? Why do you think they've given them a deaf ear?
Well, the problem, I think, is budgetary constraints. The government is not, willing and ready to support the teachers. But on insisting that the teachers should be retrained, that is very okay. Because how will you be able to impart skills, knowledge, and values and attitudes to learners that you yourself, you're not trained about? So the only challenge that is there, which the teachers are right, is on the cost and the accessibility. Only that. If the government or the Teacher Service Commission is going to cater for the costs and then ensure that the teachers are free, because we have so many institutions, we have so many universities, so many colleges that are offering education. I think all of them should be given a chance for the teachers to go and train in those institutions. Yeah.
Right. And the second tipping point, of course, is that access to the training in itself.
Yes.
And it's quite a problem as well.
Yeah.
Looking into how there is a limited number of universities that are supposed to offer the training.
Exactly.
And previously we had that some of the universities that had applied to offer the course, but the applications were maybe denied to simply due to some few of the factors. Do you feel, Mwalimu, that the Ministry of Education, together with the government, looking into this matter of accessibility of this training, played it so well in terms of the criteria at which they used to slot out these universities?
First and foremost, I do not know the criteria that they used, but ideally I am aware of some of universities and colleges that have been training teachers for a very long time. And therefore it perturbs me to find that some of these colleges were unable to be given the opportunity to train. For me, what I would suggest is that let the government and the Ministry of Education give a chance to all the teacher training colleges, to all the universities that are willing, because we have like the University of Nairobi, we have Kagumo, we have Shanzu, all these government colleges that teachers went and trained, and they've been training competent teachers. So if they were denied the chance, then that is unfair, because if these colleges have churned out very competent teachers throughout the years, how come that this time when they applied they were denied the chance, unless themselves were not willing? But I know there are those that applied for the same, as you put it, but they're not given the chance. So it is a bit skeptical, and to find that colleges with high reputation, they were not given that chance to train the teachers on the refresher course, while they have been training them professionally for a very long time. So for me, I want to urge the government and the Ministry of Education to open rooms for every college that is willing to offer this course. And it will become very easier, and the cost will also go down, because someone will either access a college near to where they are residing, or even in their rural homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Perhaps somebody will mention and say maybe this type of course and this training that is supposed to be undertaken here, it's quite different from whatever it's been taught in some of these colleges and teachers training institutions that you're talking about here.
Basically,
don't you think there is some sense also in that?
Basically, there's nothing different, because what is brought new is the content that has been added in the curriculum, whereby if there's something which is new, is about the digital literacy and some of the new values. And then another thing, because even when I tell you about teacher methodologies, it's just a matter of emphasis. But this teacher methodology, the learner-centered approaches, are taught all through. All these teacher methodologies, only that the CBC emphasizes now on and have repackaged and put these methodologies more elaborate.
Right.
But in the real sense, it's not an entirely new thing in the teaching profession. The teachers are aware of it. So it is a matter of emphasis that this is what you're supposed to do. And in fact, some of the content is just rebaptizing them. Because you find something like topic is called strand, subtopic, substrand, objective, specific learning outcome, which is one and the same thing. So there's nothing so new. And that's why you find that the course does not take a very long time.
Right.
Yeah. So there's nothing very new. It's just, in as much as we're talking about paradigm shift, but the paradigm shift is not an entire overhaul. It's a matter of focus of emphasis. Where is the emphasis on? We are emphasizing on learner-centered approach as opposed to teacher-centered approach. But the whole thing about the CBC, it does not mean that we have totally shifted from teacher-centered approach. There are certain aspects of the curriculum that also requires teacher-centered methods.
Approach.
Yeah.
Very true. And looking at where we are headed to, Mwalimu, with this whole issue over CBC, which has brought about the whole topics of having to do refresher courses and what have you, do you feel like we are missing something here in terms of proper communication and making people understand, and the stakeholders understand, including the teachers themselves, to understand of how these things are supposed to be done with?
There is a miss point there, because one about the communication you're talking about, but I want to tell you this. Anything that someone does is looking at the benefit. Now, any refresher course is meant to benefit the teacher in one or the other. One, of course, it has to impart the teacher with the new skills and knowledge. Number two, in terms of promotion. But now if you look at the structure of the refresher course, a teacher is supposed to be trained 6 times. Module 1 is introduction. Then the other 5 modules, each module is taking 5 years.
Right.
That means a teacher has 30 years to complete the refresher course. So now tell me, how many will complete the refresher course? And to be promoted, if you're in the Teacher Service Commission, you must have done at least 7 chapters, and that is taking you 7 years.
Whatever you're talking about here, Mwalimu, and in your capacity as a teacher, when you look at it, do you feel it's realistic for the government to kind of give those procedures that they're given?
It's not realistic. And this is what brings about this indifference and disillusionment among the teachers, because they're looking at it, if I have to train for about 5 years before I get promotion, or I have to train for 30 years before I complete this module. So some of them are looking at it, is this thing real logic? Because a teacher now is in his 40s, a teacher who is even in his 50s, does not see the relevance of undergoing this training, which will not earn them promotion before they retire. So because anything that someone does, there is the benefit that you're also looking at. So if this benefit is not realized, or you don't anticipate it, and of course with the duration that is given, there's no one who is in the age of 40s or 50s is anticipating to get promotion from the refresher course. And another thing is there's also a new thing that has been brought. You realize now that teacher's license, which is the TSC registration certificate, is also dependent on the training you undergo, and it will be renewed after every 5 years. So now the teachers are looking at this thing. Is this brought so that it can eliminate or give us a very stumbling block towards our progression, or what is it? Because if after every 5 years you have to have your license renewed, as opposed to initially whenever you are trained, you register with the Teacher Service Commission, that is it, you are a teacher for life, unless you violate grossly the TSC Code of Regulation. That is when you can be deregistered.
Right. That was to bring me to my next question.
Yes.
Do you foresee a situation where this is kind of a tool to use to tame some of the teachers, and whether if also there is some bit of blackmail and mischief being played here?
I think there is some mischief, and if there is no mischief, I think there was no proper consultation over this, because if, you cannot treat a teacher as a driver, because this is somebody that is undergoing, training, because even before this refresher course, teachers have been, retrained. So these are profession that the teachers undergo training every now and again.
Right.
And therefore, asking the teachers that after every 5 years they have to renew their licenses is in a way like this is a punitive measure. You want to punish them, or you want to reduce the number of teachers, or those people who are aspiring to become teachers. Because, and I'm foreseeing there's a problem we're trying to cut. Because if someone like after 5 years decides, okay, I don't want to be a teacher anymore, and decides not to renew their licenses, what will they do? And what if somebody, because there's no provision that, what if someone has not renewed their license, what will happen? Does that person cease to be a teacher? Does that person have a window to come back if he's trained? So there's some cloud covering all this, such that the teachers are now left in, in some way in a confusion. Yeah.
Mwalimu.
Yes.
Before we even get to where we are headed as an education sector with all this happening surrounding the teacher course refresher, this stuff was also taken to court.
Yes.
And it begs the question, why do you feel like some of these matters that affect our teachers, affect our students, affect the entire education sector, why should we get to a point where we need to sort out these issues in court? Why don't we even have a sit down and have a candid discussion concerning this and resolve matters without necessarily pushing these all issues to court?
Shadrach, there's something very interesting with Kenya nowadays, which is good. Democracy has really expanded after the 2020 Constitution, and you realize that the courts have become the refuge for anyone that is seeking justice. So there was sort of injustice, because honestly, if any professional or any person will feel that I think whatever is done is not in line with my constitutional right, will of course seek the court interpretation, which was okay. And the court ruled in favor of the Teacher Service Commission and the ministry. Reason being, in principle, any profession must have a provision for retraining, for re-equipping, for retooling the professionals. So the court said this was okay. The only challenge that needs to be addressed is by the Teacher Service Commission and the Minister of Education.
Right.
With regard to, one, does this refresher course motivate the teachers? Because retraining and retooling is about motivation. Because when you do an enrichment to your employee, that way you are motivating the teacher. But now the challenge is the training itself has no problem. The problem is the logistics of how to get that training.
Right.
So that's where the challenge is. So the TSC is remaining a very small thing to do, to ensure that they cater for the cost, And number two, to make it available in any place. There is no teacher in this country or any professional, whether a lawyer or what, can refuse to be retooled so they can do their work better.
Right.
Yes.
This retooling that you're talking about here, if we look at it from different point of view,
yes,
and are looking at the two sides of the coin, to some extent we may ask ourselves, do you feel like we are now getting to complicate the education sector even more, particularly also looking also to those at which are now studying to be teachers in future? Where are they even left in all this matter?
From these new things that have been brought, first of all, leave alone those are training, even those that are already trained, because someone has a certificate, but now he's told the certificate you're holding, unless you undergo a refresher course, it becomes null and void, which is something that is, you know, it's a bit awkward, or it's very, very ambiguous, because a refresher course is just meant to equip you with more skills, but already
it's a supplement.
But you are to supplement what you already have. But now imagine here you're told the certificate you have, even those that did ECD certificates, diploma, the P1, that is for the primary teacher education, that those certificates are invalid unless they undergo the refresher course. And mark you, already the teachers who are practicing have been undergoing workshops. They have been going, you know, every holiday the teachers are trained. Even as I speak, in the kind of Mombasa, the public school teachers, as I mentioned earlier, are being trained on Wednesdays, the private school teachers on Thursdays. Even as we speak today, on Tuesday, the public school teachers in Mombasa County are undergoing training and in the afternoon to equip them with the same skills. So the question that the teachers have, what is this new thing that is supposed to be taught the teachers, which is different from what they have been undergoing from the year 2018, when the new curriculum was rolled out?
Right.
Yes.
That's the biggest question, Mwalimu. It's now close to a number of years we've been having the CBC.
Yes.
Why is this wake-up call now that we need to have this refresher course? Do you feel also somebody somewhere is trying to create and craft things that are not necessarily important here?
It is due to that cloud of secrecy concerning this new training that it has brought a lot of this kind of, you know, disillusionment and indifference about it, because the teachers are asking themselves, what is it that is new in the modules? Because the modules have not been given, their outline have not been given out that check that honestly, in this particular module, there is this new thing that I am supposed to know.
Right.
And in the first module, which they call it introduction module, the Teacher Service Commission says those who undergo the introduction module, that will not be counted as part of what can be used as a yardstick for promotion. It is just an introduction. And then the other modules, the 5 of them, they will be learning chapter by chapter, every year 1 chapter. So the question is, even yourself will ask, 1 chapter, 1 year. Of course, it's during the holidays,
right,
but what is this that you are learning in 1 chapter for holiday? So some of them are looking at it as there is some cynicism on the side of the TS and the ministry. Perhaps it's just a way of trying to bridge the gap of financial gain, because remember, at this moment, the teachers training colleges do not have teacher trainees,
right,
because the requirements that were put in place for entry to do the primary teacher education in line with the competence-based curriculum, they were very high and very complicated in a manner that very few, because we have, there are less than 1,000 teacher trainees currently,
right,
and some teacher training colleges, actually, they are looking for a bleak. They are doomed because they are not teacher training. Because if the teacher is supposed to have an aggregate of a seaplane, is supposed to have a seaplane in English, a seaplane in mathematics, and then a seaplane in 3 teaching subjects. So looking at that requirement, very few of the Form 4 graduates are able to meet such requirements. And if there are those that meet, they don't opt for teaching because they are looking at it. This environment, this profession of teaching has become complicated. They don't understand. Someone cannot foresee. Its prognosis is unpredictable.
Right.
So that's why, you know, I think many people who are prospecting to become or aspiring to become teachers are shying away from it.
Right.
Yes.
And in the near future, with as much as the shying off is continuing,
Yes.
are we likely to have low numbers of students enrolling to become teachers?
Already it's happening. Already it's happening. It's not something that we are predicting, but it's already something which is happening. Because someone looks at it, you know, any profession that does not give an assurance, because the operation environment keeps fluctuating very, very unpredictably. You know, for security purposes of your profession and career-wise, you will have to think twice. That what if I train today, after you complete, you're told, okay, well, the training you underwent, now things have changed. So this shifting of goalposts is by the ministry and the Teacher Service Commission.
Right.
It makes people to be so much disillusioned about the teaching profession. Yes.
Let me ask you a very cunning question.
Yes.
Can you advise somebody now to go and study to be a teacher?
I can advise someone to go and start to become a teacher, because training to be a teacher does not necessarily mean you have to practice teaching, because teaching is a noble profession. The knowledge that you get, you can apply it in other careers and in other disciplines. You can even work with, you know, NGOs. You can even work, you know, even you can work in a media house, because you have vast knowledge. You know, teaching is all about, it's a social science. It's about the society. But when it comes to training, if someone is looking forward to training as a teacher, so they can practice teaching and is looking at the teaching profession in that line, then that is a very parochial view. And for my advice, I would be that person who has that kind of, you know, perspective, that wants to be a teacher entirely, then has to think twice. Otherwise, should go for another alternative.
Right. We've had a lot of developments in the education sector.
Yes.
Time looking at some years back until now. And somebody will ask Mwalimu, do you feel also these developments, CBC here, CBC there, refresher course here, refresher course there, so many have happened. Do you feel it's a break, or is it breaking or making the education sector?
The CBC, or the changes that have been brought, as I mentioned earlier in one of the shows, that the education and the curriculum, it is imperative and it is very necessary for it to be changed after every 5 years. That's the provision.
Right.
Because the societal needs we have in the year 2021 will not be exactly the same 5 years from now. And therefore, the education needs to also be aligned in the same way. The problem is how it is done and what is this new thing that is brought. The issue is not about the change, the issue is about how is the change done. Because if you are bringing a change and you don't involve and engage everybody to bring their input, then you will have, of course, have problems.
Right.
If you make it a one-man show or a few people discussing somewhere in a boardroom, they don't even go to the ground, they don't ask those people who are implementing, then of course there will always be a discrepancy between the policy and the real implementation of the same.
Right.
So this is what has brought this a lot of decry, this a lot of indifference, this a lot of cynicism. People are looking at these changes, perhaps they are meant to benefit somebody somewhere in the ministry, somebody somewhere in the government, somebody somewhere in the Teacher Service Commission, but not us as the professionals or even the targeted child.
Very true. Of course, last but not least, before I take another short break,
Yes.
we depend on professionals like you
Yes.
to talk about this stuff.
Exactly.
Do you feel also you, as part and parcel of the stakeholders, your statements, your say and your concerns are falling on the deaf ears of the government through?
Well, as the stakeholders, as Kenya Private Schools Association, we know we have a duty. And whether we are asked or not, we give, whether it is solicited or unsolicited advice. So whenever we are asked, we give our advice. Even if we are not asked, if we see something that is happening that is not right, we shall still give us our unsolicited advice. But it is our onus of those that are in charge of policy making now to select. The problem is that sometimes the advice that is given by the stakeholders is not taken into consideration for reasons perhaps best known to the concern, which is not right. And then eventually, this is what now we experience. You find that people, because you disregard the advice given by the stakeholders,
right.
But after you have come up with a policy, you go back to the same people and tell them, now assist us to implement this. But then when you tell them, now assist us to implement this policy, they're also asking, where is our input? They comb through the document that you have given, they read between the lines and realize that, why did you leave this one out? If you left this one out, then let us also play a watchman responsibility. We watch what is happening, but we will not engage ourselves because we are unable to implement it because the advice that we gave, we knew that when it comes to the ground, we shall see how to implement it.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. As we finish up, now I want your thoughts concerning where are we likely to be headed to?
Okay, one, as you mentioned earlier, about the government. I want to advise the government through the ministry and the Teacher Service Commission that the refresher course that is being rolled out is good. But let the teachers be told the content and outline of each topic so they may know what is that they're going to learn. Number two, the duration should be shortened so that the teachers may see the benefit that once I'm through with this refresher course training, the benefit of promotion, I will get it before I even retire. But now a benefit that is coming in 10, 20, 30 years time, you know, it creates animosity, it creates laxity, and it also creates the coldness in the hearts of the teachers because after all, how am I going to benefit? Because education has two benefits, direct to the teacher and indirect to the society. Social cost and individual cost, which brings about the individual benefit and the social benefit.
Right.
Let the duration be shortened, let the content be very clear, and let the government cater for the cost and the accessibility. Let all learning institutions which have the ability and the willingness to offer the refresher course be allowed to do so.
Right.
Another thing is about the teachers. I know they feel that the government is not fair to them. But I want to tell them as a professional teacher, to be retrained, to be retooled, and to be enriched in your job is very important. And the competence-based curriculum has some new things that every teacher who wants to do a good service to the child and to the society at large needs to be well grounded in the content and in the methodology. So as teachers, we should support the new curriculum. We should support the refresher course, but we should also ensure that this refresher course that we are undertaking is also given in a very fair way.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true. And to those who are looking forward to become teachers and maybe they're proceeding with the course at different institutions, and those who are also aspiring to be teachers. You know, somebody may view this as a kind of saying we have no future with the education system in Kenya, and the education sector in Kenya has a lot of things that can confuse you, and they are opting now to choose other different courses to do. What can you say about that?
One thing that I want to tell them is that teaching as a profession will never cease. It is a profession and a career that keep expanding. Why? Children are born. Education is the key, that everything that is done, education makes the bottom line of it. So they should be trained. Those who aspire to become teachers should go ahead and practice. They should go ahead and join teaching so that they can continue imparting the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to the learners which the society needs. The only thing that I want to ask them is they should have a diversified thinking. They should not just look at, I'm attending a teacher's training college so that I become a teacher. They can do other things with the teaching certificates.
Right.
And currently, as you are saying, there are those that are in the teaching profession or those who are in colleges practice training to become teachers. At the moment, as I told you, there are very few teachers currently who are being trained on the CBC, because the government phased out the primary teacher education
Right.
last year. The ECDE, that is the Early Childhood Education Development Certificate, they are doing their last examination for the old system in November, December this year.
Right.
So currently there are very few teachers who are on training. Those that are out are those that are yet to be employed either by the government or perhaps in the private sector, or they are doing other things. But currently we have very few teachers, trainees in the teacher training colleges. Yes.
Very true. Right. But we should not lose hope with the teaching sector.
We should not lose hope. Teachers should not lose hope simply because teaching is one of the professions that will never shrink. It will keep expanding. Because as our population increases, then the more education is required. And you know, basic education cuts across all the way from kindergarten to high school.
Right.
And even nowadays, college education, university education is needed, because you cannot spur economic growth without having a population that has good education, because the education is what that churns out different professionals.
Right.
So teaching is a profession that still has high chances. So anyone who is aspiring to become a teacher, let them go ahead and do it. Teaching profession is prolific.
Very true.